Hi students, time to finish up this exercise, and we are going to end up with two different video clips, one from the perspective of our pan cam, which is a stationary camera that will follow the motion of our teapot as it moves through the scene, as well as our first person camera, which is linked to the teapot itself, so it follows it through the scene. So two different points of view of the same animation. Now, when we render, generally we've been rendering a single frame of animation at a time to see what a scene is going to look like. So we have not really spent a lot of time here in the rendering panel. So there is one thing here I want you to take a look at under common parameters. It's generally set to single frame as a default, and that's what we've been using. So when we press render, it renders out whatever frame our slider happens to be sitting on. So when we're ready to actually view an animation in its entirety, or even part of an animation, we can view the whole segment of time that we have. So notice it says 0 to 180 because our sequence is 180 frames long. Or when you're working in really long animated sequences and say you only want to render out a piece of it, you can actually define a frame range in your animation. But we want to see the whole thing, so we want to make sure we switch it from single to active time segment. For now, we're going to leave our resolution as is, but we have the option to pick what size of a frame that we want to render out, so we can change the resolution. Also, we're going to ignore all this for the time being, just leave it on default. We want to come all the way down here where it says render output, and we want to make sure, for you guys, you probably have save file is probably disabled, because if you had save file on, every time you did a test render of a frame, it would ask you if you wanted to save it to your computer. So since we're getting ready to output the video footage itself, we want to make sure that we tell the computer to save what it renders. And we're going to click on the Files button because this allows us to not only say what we're calling our thing, we save the format that it's in, and we say where we want to put it. So what I would like for you guys to do is save your video clips to the folder on the V drive, that 3D animation folder that is your folder that you've been working out of. So at this point, that's where I want you to navigate. I'm saving mine locally to the C drive because I am not in the building right now when I'm filming this. Now, if we clicked on the file type, we have a lot of choices here. And when we are doing a preview, an AVI file should be fine. That's just a simple movie file. If we were to take this animation into Adobe After Effects to do some additional processing and special effects to it, it's better to not compress all of our frames into a self-contained movie. It's better to render out what's called an image sequence, which basically gives us a folder of one image, one JPEG, or one PNG of each frame. So if we were to render this out as an image sequence, we would get a folder with 180 images in it, each corresponding to a different frame. And that's what we want to bring into After Effects if we decide to make an animation that we're going to bring into After Effects. But for our purposes, since we're just practicing and we want to see what we've made, we are going to tell 3ds Max to take the additional step to bundle all those frames together into a movie file. And I already did this, so I happen to have one in my viewport already. So I'm going to say, I'm going to call it Teapot. Which camera is it? I don't remember. Oh, the pan cam is the one that I have selected first. So we'll do teapot underscore pan cam so we know what it is. We're going to click save, and 3ds Max might ask you if you want to use a particular codec to encode the file. I already chose mine. I chose, I believe it was MPEG 2. When you get to that step in the in your exercise, you can ask for help and I can come show it to you. All right, so we've got that, and that is it. So when we click render, the render view is going to show up, and we are going to see the computer processing each individual frame of animation at a time. We can see the frames counting up as we continue onward. And I'm going to pause the video, and when it gets to the end, I will bring us back. All right. Got to frame 180, and I'm going to hop over to the folder that I created, or I sent my videos to. Don't worry about this. And there is the teapot video, and there is my little video. And that's it. So now I'm going to do the same process again, except this time I'm going to right-click the first-person camera viewport, so I make sure that I render out that. Go back into my rendering controls, click Files, because I want to make a fresh video, right? So I want this one to be the first-person cam. Save it as an AVI, hit Go, hit Render, and then now we can see that it's rendering from that first-person perspective. So once again, I'm going to pause the video and then bring us back once it has finished. Alright, so it has gotten to frame 180, and if we go down to our folder, we can see now we have the other video of the first-person point of view of our teapot flying through our scene as though we were following the teapot itself. So there you have it. So like I said, if we had selected an image as the format for our render output, we would get a series of 180 individual images of each frame. And we will do that eventually. We'll do that with our snowman scene when we go to finally render it out, because we will bring it into After Effects and do a little processing with it. But for the purposes of today's exercise, you just want a quick video, you can do it that way. So that is essentially it. That has taken us from start to finish through the process of working with keyframes to apply keyframes to movement and rotation of an object. We've explored how the hierarchy of a series of objects can help us have different levels of control and to produce different results in an animation. We've learned about how we can attach objects to a path to create more complex animations, such as an object flying through the air. And lastly, we have taken a look at how we can use the path animation to create interesting results with cameras and lights in a scene as well. And finally, we have explored how to render out a sequence into a video clip, which basically brings us to that final step in the animation pipeline. Hope you've enjoyed these tutorials. Bye!